Alright, so today everybody, I'm going to be going over all of the weapons that I want to see in Fortnite Chapter 2 Season 7. Now, all I'm going to do in this video is just go over like all the weapons, all the loot pool, mobility, traps, heal pool, all of that stuff. And then in the video coming later this week, I'm going to be talking about the map I want and what changes I want to see for the map. But this video is all about the weapons, so I guess let's just get right into it. Now some things that I want to get out of the way is no crafting, unless it's bows. If like bow crafting stays, I'd be okay with that, but for weapons, like shotguns, all that, no crafting. No makeshifts, no primals, none of that. And also, just in case you guys are wondering what's going on in the background, this is just going to be some arena highlights. I have some good clips, some good shots, and then at the end there's going to be a 6-kill arena. Alright, so the first thing we're going to go over is probably the most important thing in any single meta, the shotguns. Now, if I had to choose any shotgun to stay, I honestly wouldn't know. Like, I like the pump a lot. Pump's very universal, it's very good. Like it says, it's a high damage pump action gun. And also the tactical's really good. It's a little bit of a like faster fire rate, but it doesn't do as much damage. I think for us to have the perfect meta, it should probably be honestly go back to levers, charges, and tags. Now I love the pump. If the pump stayed, I would not be disappointed at all. But I'm thinking just from a trio standpoint, there's just so much more potential in tax charges and lever actions than just the pump. Now, if there was pumps, tax, and charges, once again, I'd be okay with that. If pump stayed, I would not care. I would love for the pumps to stay. But I think for like this trio FNCS, it's just better to have more options. Because no one uses primals, no one uses makeshifts. So the only two shotguns we really have now are the pumps and tags. Just some examples of what I mean here is like, let's say someone has a lever action shotgun, and you have like a charge. You know you have to play a little bit more defensive and take like peek shots and angles on them. But if someone else has a charge and like you have attack, you know that you just have to like get up in their face because they can only fire like one shot. So it's just stuff like that that just makes it more skillful so you can play around what shotgun you have and play around what shotgun your opponent had. Alright, so moving on to the assault rifles, what do I want to see? Of course, as most of you can probably guess, of course I want to see the normal assault rifle still in the game. It's the most universal. It's actually, fun fact, the only thing that hasn't been taken out of the game. The only item that hasn't been in the vault is the normal assault rifle, which is kinda cool. Obviously, normal assault rifle should stay, and I think, honestly, bursts should probably come back. Heavy assault rifles are just too hard to use, and I'd be okay if infantry stayed. They're very good for like sniping long range. But if we have snipers next season and we don't have a follow-up weapon, they're gonna become obsolete because no one's gonna run them if you have like an infantry and a pump. If you miss that pump shot, you really have nothing else to go off. But if we had something like the burst weapon, well then like it's very good for like beaming kids out of the sky, high damage, lower fire rate. I think that is like the most skillful weapon. Obviously, like I would hope that they would like adjust like the aim assist because those Chapter 2 Season 2 clips were not fun to look at. But other than those two weapons, another thing that I would want to come back would be actually the Stark Industries energy rifle. Now I know it was a part of a like collaboration with Marvel, so they can't bring that exact thing back. But if we're having aliens in the game and like futuristic, like all of that, I think that we should have an energy rifle. We could just completely remove the Stark Industries part and just make an energy rifle. Maybe make a new type of ammo like they have in Save the World, or maybe just make it so that like it uses the medium bullets like the old one did. But I think that is one of the most skillful weapons. You can auto fire it when you hip fire, or you can like make it a semi-auto weapon when you aim in, and it has a high damage potential. I think it also did less damage when you were auto firing, which honestly is really good. So if there's one weapon that I want back, it would definitely be some type of energy rifle. Alright, so moving on to pistols and SMGs, I'm gonna put these two together because I don't really care. Honestly, I think the normal pistol should come back, especially the epic and legendary one. That one was actually really good. Hand cannon would be nice. Flintlock would be really nice to come back. I would love it if the flintlock pistol came back. But other than those three, there's really nothing else here that like is appealing. If you bring any of them back, I don't think anyone's gonna use them. So that doesn't really matter. And for SMGs, same thing. You only need like one or two. Honestly, the normal SMG is fine. Suppress is really good, but I don't know. I don't really think any of these really have to come back. If they do, I want to be mad, but I also wouldn't really care. Alright, so moving on to snipers. I think this is where I would hope for a separate loot pool. In public matches, I love the idea of snipers. You have your like bolt actions, and suppressed, and hunting rifles. All that is just so much fun to use. But in competitive, it really does stink if you get like maybe like a 212 headshot done. So I'm thinking they can bring back something like the hunting rifles or like the bolt actions, but maybe make it so they do less damage in competitive. I don't know if that's possible. I think it would be really good if the bolt action could not do a 212 headshot. But honestly, if it did, I wouldn't really care, because all you have to do is just avoid it and just like be unpredictable. Obviously, like if you get like headshot with it, it's not fun, but we have bows in the game. It's the same thing. It's just harder to hit. So for sniper rifles, I would definitely love to see them back in the game. 100% would love. Now, we are going to move on to a pretty interesting topic, I would say. Crafting. Now, when you're crafting weapons, I don't want that in the game. I don't want no makeshifts. I don't want, honestly, probably no primals either. Unless the primal SMG stayed, because that's actually really good. But I don't think any weapon should not have first shot accuracy, especially in an assault rifle. But back to crafting. I don't like the idea of crafting weapons. And the only thing that I could see that would be good for crafting would be bows. Like you can make a mechanical shockwave bow or a primal flame bow or stink bow. If those stayed, I think that's the only thing that should have crafting. Only the bows. Nothing else should have crafting. You shouldn't have to take an on-spawn fight with an absolute terrible weapon just because of RNG. You shouldn't have to spend 10 minutes a game getting a good loadout and then dying instantly. Like that's why the game wasn't fun this season, was because of the crafting. It was just not fun at all trying to fight with these makeshifts. So I think if crafting stayed, it should only be bows. And that's it, just the bows, mechanical shockwave bows, explosive bows, stink bows, flame bows, any type of bow I'm fine with, just as long as the crafting does not affect any other weapon. Alright, so one more thing that I probably should have said earlier but I didn't, is actually, I think bows should be in competitive and snipers should be in public matches. I think that would be better. Because the bows are a little bit harder to use than the snipers, so I think that would be probably a good alternative. Now, moving on to Mythic Weapons. I think that if we are going to have Mythics next season, they should only be in public matches. Or, if it's a defensive Mythic, then it should be in competitive. And when I say defensive, I don't mean like an absolutely terrible Midas's jump gun that does a 50 headshot that like someone can't win against unless they hit a lucky pump shot. I'm saying something like Ocean's Bottomless Chug Jug. Something like that can be in competitive, because that doesn't help you kill people, it just helps you stay alive. So if they had like a rechargeable chug splash or something like that, that like is kind of like the chug cannon, I'd be okay with that. I think a really good defensive type of mythic should be in competitive matches. And if you're gonna bring out like, oh, like an alien scepter or an alien rifle, that should be in public matches. Alright, mobility. This is probably the hottest topic right now. We need something. Honestly, if I had to choose like any mobility items to come back, I don't even know. The Rift is like a little bit too overpowered and competitive. Shadow bombs would be nice if you're maybe making like you can hold 4 instead of 6. Chiller grenades, I don't think anybody wants those back. Let's see, what else do we even have here? Crash pads. If you can make it so crash pads and shockwaves don't break builds, or like they break builds which is not as many, then I think they can come back. But crash pads were just a little bit too exploity. Same thing with the shockwaves. It wasn't really that fun if you were fighting someone who knew what they were doing. So maybe if they had something like the impulse grenades come back, but like made it so you don't take fall damage with them. Like that little short hop, it's good. Impulse grenades would be very good to have back, especially if they made it so it negates fall damage. Even if it doesn't, that would still be a good item to have back. If you use it at the right time, you can get like an early rotate into the next zone. But if you don't use it at the right time, you'll get beamed. Or maybe if they bring back bouncers, which we'll talk about in the trap section, you can do like an impulse bouncer. So like it goes the same distance as a shockwave, basically. Also like doesn't break as many builds. I don't know. I think impulse grenades should definitely come back. And permanent mobility should come back too in the new season. Permanent mobility. I think with the new like drones that we have, like back in season 9, I think those would easily come back just because of like the new like aliens. We just need some type of new mobility, just some type of something. Other than our own 2 feet and swimming. Alright, so moving on to the heal pool. Now, I think this season was actually pretty balanced with the heals. We had all the fish, we had all the normal weapons, all the shields, all the medkits, bandages. But I think if we're gonna have a trio FNCS, we need to have chug splashes. Like there's no reason for us not to have chug splashes in a competitive meta. They are so good for healing you and your team. The only problem I can see with them is heal-offs. We didn't really have a lot of heal-offs this season in FNCS, and I think this is why. It's just because there's less white heals that you could like instantly pop. That's why there was a lot of medkits used instead. So, I don't know, it could get a little shaky and competitive. Maybe take it so you can only hold like 4. Same thing with like the floppers, maybe make it so you can only hold 3 instead of 4. But other than like chug splashes or maybe like the chug jug or slug juice or anything like that, I think we have a really good meta. I would personally, for fish, maybe take out the stink fish. That was a little bit too overpowered, but if it stayed, I wouldn't mind. Cuttlefish, no one really uses anymore. I don't know, I don't really see anything else that should be added back. Maybe some type of mobility fish. 0-point floppers would be nice to have again. Spicy fish are good. I guess other than that, we can move on to the consumable items. So like apples, bananas. I think all that's really good. Peppers though. Those are very good, but I think they should be more scattered around the map. I think they should be at more than just the knob crate. Maybe in the new season there's like a specific area that like has peppers and you can like eat that like are permanently there. Kinda like the coconut trees. Something like that would be nice. And I think that's pretty much everything. I like the idea of the peppers. I definitely want chug splashes back. So I guess with all that said, let's move on to mobility. Also, sorry about that, we actually have one more category to go over. Vehicles. Cars are good. I like the cars. I think the off-road tires are a great addition because like you're in the passenger seat, you can get beamed while using them. They're a great easy rotation. Maybe make it so like, I don't know, they spawn less often. Especially if we're not going to need as many mechanical parts next season. Because it's not fun getting ran up and like buy a whiplash and having someone third party you and instantly kill you. So I think other than cars, I think hoverboards should come back. Hoverboards were a very, very good vehicle. You could use them to rotate, or just like bouncers, you could get beamed if you didn't use them correctly. I think other than that, maybe ATKs. ATKs would be really fun. Or just some type of something new. Some type of new vehicle that would come with the Season 7 aliens. Maybe like a UFO. Oh my god, I don't think UFO. But who knows? It's Fortnite. You never know what's gonna happen.